Good morning and welcome back to Valley News Now. Adam Shalfa joined by the Sheriff in Cass County, Sheriff Jessie Jahner. Thank you so much for joining me in studio.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Happy to have you and excited to do more of these monthly conversations. We talked last time about some of the measures taken for a secure election, talking about some more really cool training, and just to tease that out a little bit. But first, it looks like we're going to kind of see some of that first snow in this region.
Yeah, it sounds like the weather's going to change for us. We've been really lucky through the fall up to this point. So, but we know it's coming eventually, and it looks like we have that forecast now in over the next few days where we're going to get some snow. So, you know, for us as a law enforcement agency, really when we have that first snowfall, it takes drivers, or tends to take drivers a little bit to adjust, you know, to those slippery conditions. So we're always just asking people, you know, to pay attention to those conditions. With the rain that we're having right now, as the temperature drops, we might get some roads that become icy. But then again, when we get that snowfall as well, that people are watching their speeds, they're slowing down, they're keeping that safe travel distance between themselves and other vehicles. And then, you know, we probably should have already prepared for this, but we've been lucky, like we said, to this point with the weather, but being able to prepare for those adverse weather conditions, making sure that people's cars are equipped for the winter. They've got good tires on there. They've had their vehicles winterized, excuse me, in the way of you know, like their coolant levels and things of that nature, so they don't find themselves stalled out on a road when the conditions are bad or the weather is cold. And then making sure that they have a survival kit in their car, including some extra warm gear, maybe a blanket, some snacks, some water, things of that nature. Making sure that their cell phone, every time before they leave the residence, that their cell phone is charged in case they do find themselves stranded, that they're able to call for help. And if people have to travel a long ways, especially over next week with Thanksgiving, that they're giving their relatives their travel plans, so that if they do become stalled, and law enforcement does need to go in search of them, that we can do that, and we know what route they've taken to get to their destination. So we're always reminding people of those basic safety factors. One thing that we really concentrated on, not last year but the year before, with the blizzard conditions that we were having, is if people do find themselves stranded, not to wander away from their vehicle, to stay with the vehicle, because a lot of times if we have a whiteout condition and people leave their vehicle and then they find themselves getting disoriented very quickly, and, and we don't want people to find themselves in a situation where they don't, you know, they can't seek shelter. They're out in those elements and we can't locate them. So
yeah, you know, it reminds me, I've heard some stories about farmers on the western side of the state when they have to work in those whiteout conditions, and just things you don't really think about because normally we're safe indoors, but they'll tie a rope to themselves, you know, and just so they can get back, because once you get out there and it's a whiteout, not that that's what we're expecting anytime soon necessarily, but it does, like you said, get very disorienting. So that's a good tip there. Another thing we talked about yesterday with Lisa was, you know, a lot of those phones have the GPS, just a great way for keeping an eye on the relatives who may be coming to town, or sharing with the relatives you may be coming to visit, especially if they're expected to see a little bit more snow next week.
Yeah, and another useful tool for that GPS is, if a person has a vehicle that's equipped with OnStar, sometimes we can locate people through that application as well. But yeah, any of those pieces that would help us in an extreme blizzard type situation be able to locate people, that's always helpful. But like we mentioned, not wandering away from the vehicle is a very important piece of being able to keep a person safe when they're out in those conditions.
Well, some great info, especially ahead of what's going to be a really big travel week for a lot of people watching today. But what we're going to mostly be talking about today is, I got it written down here, National Forensics Academy. This is in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, put on by Tennessee University down there. And it just sounds like an incredibly in-depth program, and something that some of our local law enforcement will be able to attend.
Yeah, so as the Sheriff's Office, we've been looking for ways to increase our capabilities, both through our patrol efforts and our investigative efforts. And as you know, as we move forward and we progress, technology changes, and there's different tools that become available for us to preserve and work through crime scenes. And really, the National Forensic Academy, which you had mentioned, which is located in Tennessee, put on by the University of Tennessee, is really kind of that premier investigative school that that people look to send their investigators through. And so we've sent 2 people through it now. Our last person that we sent through just got home last week, and we are just looking for different ways to investigate crimes, better ways to investigate crimes, and preserve those crime scenes. But this course is a 10-week course, 400 hours. It's pretty extensive. There's a number of different tests that come with the class and certifications, and really when we get that person back, the knowledge that they bring back to the organization has been substantial. In fact, the first individual that went through the National Forensic Academy and came back here, it was shortly thereafter that we had the attempted murder down on County Road 81. And that individual was able to show us some additional investigative techniques that we hadn't used before in terms of the weapon and identifying like blood stain, blood patterns, and things like that. So it's really a way that we can make sure that we can investigate those crime scenes properly, effectively, and efficiently, and bring justice to victims that are involved in those cases.
It's very interesting then to hear how that knowledge can trickle throughout the department as well. It sounds like something where you can send one person, they're going to have a huge impact, but really it brings up the collective knowledge of the whole force by exposing them to that level of information.
Yeah, anytime that we send someone away from training, what we expect from our staff is to come back and share that knowledge with the rest of the team.
Okay.
Obviously, some of these schools, some of these academies, different classes that we send people to can be expensive, so we can't afford to send all of our staff through there. So really what we're looking for is that person brings that knowledge back and helps train additional staff within our organization so that we can continue to move our level of training, knowledge up as we move forward and be a progressive agency.
And I know you have quite a long list, and feel free to just read off that, because that would be like memorizing the periodic table, just all the information on there. But it sounds like just an unbelievable level of different modules and different things that people will be learning there.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight some of them because I think that when people hear about forensic academies, forensic courses, investigative courses, there's a lot that comes with that. And in this particular university, what our staff gets certified in doing as far as investigative techniques, evidence collection, is numerous. And so they go through, or they obtain knowledge in blood pattern analysis, bombs, booby traps, and threats, crime scene management, computer sketching and mapping. So basically mapping out a crime scene by using different types of software. Courtroom testimony, criminal investigative analysis, DNA collection, firearms and tool mark identification, bullet trajectory, footwear tire impressions, forensic fire investigation, latent fingerprint processing. They take a photography class there. Death investigation, they observe autopsies there. They do bone identification, bone trauma, and so through the death investigation, the autopsy, and the bone identification, they actually have what's called, or people have heard it referred to as a body farm. And so there are people that donate their body to science, which is very crucial to law enforcement as well. And through donating their bodies to this particular university, our investigators are able to exhume bodies that have been buried for a length of time, and they can number one help identify where maybe these grave sites might be through different knowledge pieces that they get through this academy, and then exhume that body and determine race, sex, how long the body's been buried there, and be able to collect evidence from that body, and be able to piece the crime scene back together. And so that's, obviously you can't do that anywhere, right? That has to be very, very coordinated effort.
Yeah.
There has to be families on board that donate their bodies to that science, but a very interesting and in the way that that whole piece or that whole block of instruction is coordinated, and then allowing investigators to work through those scenes and being able to piece those scenes back together.
So when you're talking about the body farms, you know, obviously that just seems like it would be something in a murder. So if someone's hiding a body and then they go bury it somewhere, I mean, I feel like at that point, it's almost like you're walking around the beach with a metal detector. I don't even know what that would look like to begin. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so there's different techniques that they can use to try to locate that body. Of course, I haven't attended the academy, but just in some of the instruction that's been brought back, you know, just basically looking at the dirt and being able to see different levels of how that dirt's settled in different areas.
Okay.
There might be different types of plant life around a body that's been deceased for a while.
Interesting.
And then there's different tools that can also be used, much like you said, and it's not necessarily a metal detector, but there's different techniques that people can use that when you're over a body gives indication that there might be a body buried underneath that particular area. And so, yeah, it's really a unique piece that they bring to this class, but very important because, I mean, certainly there have been crimes that have been committed where people try to get rid of bodies and get rid of evidence that way. And so being able to locate and work through and preserve evidence in those types of scenes is very crucial to law enforcement, and being able to piece that whole case back together and what happened.
I know you spoke about the benefits for the whole team, but what has the individual feedback been by the people who have attended these training programs? What have they had to report back about, like how much they learned or how much they enjoyed it, or just the experience as a whole?
Yeah, so those are excellent questions. The feedback has been that the course is very challenging at times, which of course we would want it to be, right? They're learning a lot. There's a lot of science that comes with this. There's some math. When you're talking about bullet trajectory and trying to figure out angles of how maybe a bullet entered a car or something like that, there has to be mathematic equations put to use in those types of situations. And so there's been, when they've come back, they've said that there's been some parts that have been really challenging. But they're definitely grateful for going down and gaining that knowledge. And a number of times I've heard them say that had they had this knowledge in previous investigations that they had done, they might have done things a little bit different. Not that they did things wrong, but there might have been different ways to do things more efficient and effective, and maybe reduce some of those investigative times because they're using better and more efficient techniques. And so we get things like that. And then just, I mean, it's been very evident to me sitting in on some of the investigations that they're doing, once they get back, just the level of knowledge that they brought back and some of the things that they're showing me. We do send people through our Bureau of Criminal Investigative basic investigation course, and that's very knowledgeable to our staff as well. But again, this is just a kind of a higher level to that first piece.
And did you say earlier that the only other group in North Dakota is BCI, who's been sending people to this course?
Yeah, I think, in our conversation before, as far as law enforcement agencies in our area who's sending people to the National Forensic Academy right now, I'm familiar with the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. They do it pretty regularly. Of course, that's their main focus as an organization, their main mission. And so most certainly they'd want to get their staff through there. But yeah, as far as I know right now, they're doing it, and then we are as well. So
I feel like this might be a softball question here for you, but what made this so important to you for sending these people to go and learn all these different courses down there in Tennessee?
Yeah, well, it's important for myself as the sheriff and then the sheriff's office as an organization that we maintain our training and proficiency, whether it's in our patrol efforts, in our investigative efforts, if it's in our task force efforts, any of those ways that we're trying to provide public safety to our community. We always want to find better ways, if we can, to bring that service to our citizens, to bring that service to victims. So, this was kind of a no-brainer because, again, our staff coming back and having that additional knowledge so that we can help solve cases and bring justice to victims and find better ways to do things, more efficient ways, and be progressive as an organization to advance as technology advances is really important to us as a whole. And then, again, being able to provide that great service to our citizens that we serve every day.
Excellent. And you said one person came back. You're sending two So there's no another person going out relatively soon here?
Yep, so we've sent one person, two people actually. Well,
Okay.
one person got back. We had sent a person earlier last year, or well this year, but it would have been at the end of the spring of this year.
Okay.
And then we just sent a person this fall they just came back last week.
Okay.
And then now we'll be sending another person in January. And the goal would be that we eventually get our whole investigative staff through there. But we have to look at the resources that we have available back here to make sure that we can properly keep up with cases here. And then there's a little bit of a cost to sending people there. That cost is around $12,000, but in the long run, I think we save money because we're not sending people to these individual courses all over. This
Right.
is just a one-shot deal, and they gain all this knowledge in one course and bring it back. So, so we always want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible as well in how we determine when we send people and budgets and things like that.
And I feel like in a lot of different industries, obviously yours I'm not as familiar with as other fields of work I've been in, but efficiency itself usually saves money too.
Yeah, it's gonna save time, it's gonna save resources, and if we're efficient in one area of our job, then we can provide more resources in another area of our job, right?
Right.
So if we're efficient in investigations, then maybe we don't have to pull as many patrol people away from their daily patrol duties of taking calls for service from people and taking those general reports to help with those investigations, because our investigators could be more efficient in crime scene processing.
Excellent. Well, Sheriff, some great information. Is there anything else that you would like to dive into or more you discuss on this topic before we let you get back to work here?
At this point, I just want to reiterate that we're very happy that we're able to do this. We appreciate the support from the community, and I think that this is just going to bring a new level of law enforcement knowledge and efficiency to the work that we do every day. And hopefully we can better serve our community and our citizens through these efforts.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in on Valley News Now. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Tune in later this afternoon. Russ Thomas will be joining, talking a little bit about that system we're going to start to see developing as we kind of get that first taste of winter. Adam Shelf with Sheriff Jessie Jahner signing off on Valley News Now. We'll see you next time.